Hello, I'm Reverend Kate DuVivier, and I would like to welcome you to the Center for Spiritual Living in Carlsbad's virtual Sunday gathering. And it is a gathering, so I would really love it if you could post a hello in the comment box. It lets us just have that feeling that we are together as one, even though we're physically separate this morning. I miss you so much. I know we all are missing each other, but I also know that this is a temporary situation. This too shall pass. So before I get started, I want to just take a moment and express how much we at the center appreciate the ongoing financial support that you have been able to share with us. And I want to let you know that we want to give back to you. And so that even though our center is now physically closed, when it comes to prayer or following up on any other requests you may have, we're 100% open. So you can text us or email us or phone us and let us know what's up with you. Please do that. So I'd like to begin now with a spiritual mind treatment. I just invite you to take a moment and just take a breath and relax and feel the truth that within each of us there is this upwelling of knowledge, the knowledge that there is a power for good. There is one mind. That mind is God's mind. That mind is my mind now. That mind is our mind now. This is true because I know and understand that really spirit is all there is. We live in a spiritual universe, a universe of growth and expansion, and there is good for us. Good for us, yearning to be in expression, and we can now accept it as good in demonstration. I accept this is the truth. I allow this to be the truth, and I give thanks that it is the truth right here and right now. Well, you probably have heard the old saw that the past is history, the future is a mystery, but the present is a gift. And the truth is that today really is the first day of the rest of our lives. And it's also the day after. The day after everything that we have been through so far. The day after Independence Day. And wow, if you think about it, it just feels like we have been through a lot lately, doesn't it? What's different right now is that while each of us does have a lot going on personally, we also have been going through so much together. It's strange, even though most of us have been physically distancing and staying apart as much as possible, yet our experiences are moving very, very much together. You know, people have talked about feeling like they're locked down, but also it's true that we're a little bit in lockstep here too, aren't we? So our theme at the center this for July is Freedom Speaks. And I think you'll agree that it certainly does. And it certainly has been so loudly. It's almost hard to sift through it all to understand What's going on? You know, each of us looks through our own lens, or you could say through our own window into life, into what's happening. Probably like a lot of people who are, you know, fellow boomers, I have to look a little bit through the lens of the 60s. But I have to watch out that I don't start thinking and believing that what is happening today is just a replay of what was going on back then. It's not. Still, when I think about some of the things happening today, it does trigger some feelings and some sounds and some memories from the past, from my own past. But it also, because I know a little bit about history and because our culture is a shared culture that's been passed down to us through the generations, it also triggers feelings about things that went on before any of us here today even arrived on Earth, before we were born. So for me, it's been taking a strange way out, floating through my mind in the form of little bits of old songs, you know, old Buffalo Springfield words, you know, feels like we better stop, children. What's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Other songs like Southern Man. And crazily, one song that I just couldn't get out of my mind was actually one of my grandmother's favorite songs. That's Nina Simone's Mississippi Goddamn. She wrote it back in 1964. For some reason, it just popped up. And, you know, it popped up like unfinished business. And now, just last Wednesday, actually, I found out that the state of Mississippi, the legislature of Mississippi, just voted to change, to retire the state flag. The old flag that had incorporated the Confederate flag, they putting that aside. And I thought, you know, things do change. There is progress. And this was really an indication of a very peaceful surrender to the truth, the absolute truth, that this nation where we live, America, is actually one united nation. That's the truth. That's the underlying truth about everything that's going on. Freedom speaks. When I was reading about this, the article I read quoted the daughter of Medgar Evers, who was a civil rights leader that was assassinated back in 1963. And she attended the removal ceremony, and afterwards she said, that Confederate symbol is not who Mississippi is now. That Confederate symbol was not what Mississippi was in 1894 either. But now we're going to a place of total inclusion and unity with our hearts, along with our thoughts and actions. That really made me feel good. Freedom speaks. And when I thought about her words, I realized that my thoughts had shifted away from mourning the sad old days, the sad old history, even maybe the sad recent history, and shifted into celebrating a glad new day. The day in which we live, right now, today. Today is another day to be glad in, because freedom speaks. So yesterday, we Americans at least celebrated our 244th Independence Day. I looked it up and I was so surprised to find out that even in the midst of the Revolutionary War, just 1 year after the Declaration of Independence was written, they had the first Independence Day celebration. The truth is, this is a nation of optimists. We are optimists, and freedom speaks through us and for us. You know, the truth is that optimists look at the bright side, and the bright side looks back at them. And this is what we in religious science refer to as a spiritual principle. Just like Jesus said, what you look for is what you will find. So today I wanted to talk about just the topic of free to be, because each of us is a spiritual being and we do have choices to make. And when I picked, my talk title, and when our group of ministers chose the idea of freedom speaks, we didn't really know what would be going on around us right now. And yet it seems like this theme is perfectly appropriate. So, how do I know that we are free to be? How do I know that freedom speaks? Well, I know it because it is self-evident. It's obvious. It's plain as the nose on your face. In our Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson wrote these words: "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." So he put number 1, life. Number 2, liberty, or let's call it freedom. Number 3, the pursuit of happiness, or I call it joy. And I want to say something about Thomas Jefferson, because lately there's been a lot of controversy about historic figures and what kind of a life did they lead. Were they pure at heart? Even the fact that the Declaration of Independence only referred to men and not women puts, a question mark in the minds of plenty of people. And of course, Thomas Jefferson and several other of the founding fathers were slave owners, and I consider that to be a personal flaw. They had these flaws and plenty of other flaws besides that. But despite that, despite these personal, what we might look at as shortcomings, he moved this nation forward. And you could call his group of founding fathers, you could almost look at them as a visioning group, right? They lived in a certain situation. They lived in a certain reality that to us might seem rather backward. And yet together, they were able to come up with a vision of truth. A vision of truth that has set into motion this thing called America. It planted a seed into the hearts of this, of the whole population, whether they were at that time able to vote or not. And a funny thing is that shortly after the Revolutionary War, when there were elections, it wasn't only wealthy white men who could vote. In certain states, freed blacks could vote. And I read that in New Jersey, women who were single and had property could vote. So it wasn't like a total opinion was held that it would only be men of property, even at that very early time. But what was the real breakthrough? The thing that really set the Declaration apart from anything that I know of that had gone before was this idea that people had liberty, freedom, that they belonged to themselves. Way back 500 years or so earlier, when the English king signed the Magna Carta, what that did is it gave people the right to justice. But it didn't give them the right to actual liberty. The king was still in charge and could tell them where they were going to live, what they were going to do, how much they were going to get paid. This Declaration of Independence was a true breakthrough. It was an idea of freedom spoken out through the written word after there's a wonderful visioning experience that drew on the experience and the hopes and dreams of the people of America. It drew on it and it brought forward this idea of freedom. And this idea of freedom, which was a beautiful idea, and it still is a beautiful idea, is an idea that changed the world. And from that, intrinsic with that idea of freedom is, of course, the idea of self-reliance. And that's one of the things that we really talk about a lot in the Science of Mind. The idea that we have freedom of choice, freedom to choose. And with that freedom comes a responsibility. So our lives can unfold in good as we choose. Our lives can move towards our vision, what we are able to envision as what we would like, when we allow it to happen, when we begin to see clearly, when we make a decision, everything changes. It's the truth. We teach a simple concept, really. Change your thinking and change your life. Your life, you could consider your life to be the effect. And you could consider your thoughts to be the cause. Or you might think of it as cause and effect, or an effect could be like a consequence. How my life out pictures is a consequence of what I'm thinking. But you know what the trick is? I'm not actually always thinking. I'm not actually always, looking anywhere except at what's happening around me. I sit down and I watch the TV and I see, a million people walking around without masks, and I might fall under the influence of that because I'm part of this culture called America. I sit down and I look at the TV and I might see, thousands of people protesting in the streets, calling for this or that. Today, calling for some things that I really support, and then maybe other things I'm maybe more skeptical of. But the thing is, have I thought it through? Have I come to my own decision? And have I come to my own decision with an open mind and an open heart? You see, we do live in an external world, a shared world of effect. And so we're always being influenced by it. We're always, we're not alone. If I were alone, I could just wear my mask for 3 weeks and go outside and everything would be fine. But we're all together in this, and so we need to be patient and kind to each other. That's the lesson. To realize that just like the founding fathers had some flaws or foibles, so do we. I do. I know I do. Even though, of course, sometimes it's hard to admit. Well, it's sometimes easier to admit that that other guy maybe has some shortcomings in their thoughts and beliefs. But that's just because I don't see myself so clearly. They see me. That's why it's so helpful to have a dialogue. You see me, and I appreciate knowing that you also have studied a little bit of science of mind, because it helps me understand from your experience that my experience is valid. So we create some mutual education of each other that we can put into play along with our need, absolute need, to go inside, to quiet our minds, to realize that not only do we live in an external world, but we live in a world that is, well, Christ called it the kingdom within. Heaven is within us. This truth, this good, this truth about freedom and our lives is actually something that we can tap into. And so as we study more and more, we become able to tap into not just what's going on around us, whether we're out there or whether we're sitting at home reading a book, watching TV, or talking on the phone. We can tap into our own mystical depths. That's where freedom begins. You are free to be. This freedom is intrinsic. It is a pathway that belongs to you, and you deserve all good. So this week I'm going to invite you to take some time and allow your mind to flow towards what it is you want to see in the world. And know that as you visualize that good which you would like to see in your life, in the life of your friends and family, in the life of our nation itself, as you visualize that, it's just like planting a seed into the world. That's what the Declaration of Independence was. They planted a seed into the world. And in a smaller, more personal way, each of us is constantly planting seeds into the world. And when we make a thoughtful and clear decision, those seeds are seeds of good, which bring abundance, prosperity, health, love, kindness, harmony, and peace to all. It's our choice to receive and to share. In our hearts, we understand. But what we have to do is just to begin to allow the process to work through us, for us, and as us. That's the truth. I give so much thanks for you right now. I send you my love. And I know that this truly is the first beginning moment of our beautiful, beautiful lives unfolding in good, plenty, surrounded with grace. That's the truth. And so it is.